course, do we need to be picking out flag boards, the reflective flag boards with artificial light? So many different things have to be thought about when you are overseeing this race and making sure that everybody in it is safe and warned of incidents further up the road. The number 9 car is going to slot in to 9th position. No, beg your pardon, much further down than that. 19th position for car number 9 with Maxi Buch installed. That is the Fabian Schiller and Maximilian Goertz, along with Raffaele Marciello driving lineup. The race logic clock ticking by, I noticed there, with the 11 minutes to go. Is that no, it won't be a countdown to the start of the race, because that's now less than...
It was a count up.
Was it counting up?
Yeah, there was 40 minutes since he turned it on or whatever, but that was a count up, absolutely. So we're getting quite lucky, because we're going to get treated to a race restart where we've got 16 cars in contention. Everyone's had, what was it, 7 hours to set their car up, and the ones who got it wrong can work out what's going on. The only downside is we've lost the fast Mercedes, haven't we? That's the key thing. It's the downside from the event, from where it started. And when it originally started all those hours ago, we've lost the fast Mercedes, who dominated the front of the field for those first few hours. Initially with a car 4, before that had an accident involving other people, and then it went. I think on the 4 accident, I only saw it on a replay. I wasn't in the booth there. Was that a case of it coming across too quickly after overtaking someone and then getting the wiggle on, or was it? No. So he was trying to get away from the person. He just gave it a little bit too much power and then got the wiggle on, which then sent him into the barrier.
Well, he'd overtaken the Porsche that seemed to also be involved in the accident, and then of course, as soon as the Mercedes was in the barrier, the Porsche went off in sympathy as well. But it was well clear of that.
Right.
Coming through the smaller of the 2 carousels, cleared the concrete, so that's one of the bits of the danger zone's gone. And then probably about 20 meters after the concrete section, it snapped to the left, and Metzger tried to catch it, but it then pitched to the right.
Tank slapped him, yeah.
Precisely, yeah. Classic tank slapper.
It's difficult to tell from the, because it was an onboard only, to tell exactly how the Porsche was involved in that. And I just wondered whether, because I also wondered whether potentially the actual Porsche got its braking wrong, or it actually had to slightly touch him at the rear.
No, I don't think there's any contact.
And not more to put him on the wrong line, hence the reason he wasn't where he thought he was. And when he put the power on, the car didn't do what it was supposed to do. He had a... And
no, it was perfect racing line for Metzger through the carousel, and just it's just snapped to the left. I mean, Metzger is the lesser experienced driver, generally there's the slower of the combination as well. I think I'm right in saying that Metzger is a silver graded driver, so you know, not as experienced, and although impressed a number of people a few years ago. But I mean, I think in terms of speed, Maro Engel will be the quickest in that combination, then probably Adam Christodoulou, Lucas Stolz next, and Metzger as the 4th fastest on average times, and that's purely a guess from my perspective. The green flag is waved, bang on time, 8 o'clock Central European summertime, and the cars then will head out onto a full lap of the Gesamtstrecke. That's both laps combined, the Grand Prix and the Nordschleife. And then, behind the safety car, we'll get a restart with, as I said, not a single file restart, the full grid, but again split into 2, and a chance to use this word again, start groupers.
Excellent. We
used that at 3:30 yesterday.
And just to continue the story, we also, the other fast cars we lost very early on, we lost the Lamborghini that was going incredibly quick, wasn't it? Just carving through the field. And that went out with the gearbox, wasn't it? That was the problem with that one, just stopped at the side of the road, and it was moving forward much head in hand. And then the most recent leader to go out was the number 9 car, which went a couple of rounds from them with, as we said, a failure, spin and a failure, and then a resulting, as they tend to limp it back, or not realise how much problem there was, it hit the clatter barriers. That car has rejoined. The 9 car is back in, but 2 laps down. We have 16 cars on the lead lap. We are led by the Audi Sport Team Car 1. Then it's the Audi Sport Team Car 29 in 2nd, and the Audi Sport Team Car 3 in 3rd, which is remarkable, because Audi had a absolute nightmare in qualifying. They didn't qualify anything in the top 10, mainly due to a poor tyre choice. Slowly moved up like a phalanx of cars just attempting to pull their way through the field. They're just creeping up, and now they have the top 3 position.
Well, yeah, I did suggest that. I think at one point we had 4 Audis, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, and I said to Alex Brundle at the time, a bit of a numbers game potentially there, because if there are dramas ahead, then they could afford to lose one of those 4 cars, which is exactly what's happened actually. And now you've got 3 Audis, 1st, 2nd and 3rd, to give you some indication of, I know they're all labelled as the Audi Sport Team, but car 1 is a Phoenix Racing entered machine. 29 is from Land Motorsport, and car 3 is from our friends at Car Collection. Mirko Bortolotti, Christopher Haase and Marcus Winkelhock. Car Collection, a regular entrant to the Creventic series as well, and always turn out with a couple of R8s at the Dubai 24.
Alexander Sims is in the car, in the Rover Racing BMW M6. So that's the BMW M6 has been, despite the cars being going past them, falling out, crashing, dying, that BMW appears to be in 4th the entire time. So it appears,
yeah,
cars go
that
past, car falls off. We're just literally permanently in 4th. We're just behind 3 different cars each time. We're still in 4th. First Porsche is Dennis Olsen, the KCMG number 18. And Porsche's still not showing any form at all, with the best place of 5th despite losing all the Mercedes and a Lamborghini. So that's a net 8th. I know it's not how racing works, but you know what I mean. And then we have the 2nd of the BMWs in 6th with, is it Sheldon van der Linde or his brother who's in that car?
The BMW is Sheldon, yeah, because Kelvin's still very much an Audi driver.
In the Team Schnitzer. And then we have, interesting, Phoenix Racing, the 5 car is listed as Phoenix Racing, not Audi Sport.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that one car's also entered by Phoenix Racing. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes, I'm not entirely sure how that works, but Phoenix actually had another car on the original entry list as well, with Richard Westbrook as one of the drivers, car 14. But yeah, Phoenix Racing doesn't appear in the entrant name for car 1, but it very definitely is.
It's in 7th. It's got Kim Louis Schramm in the seat. Mauro Engel is in the 6th Mercedes. So the only Mercedes really now up and running in contention, that's his 2nd book now, is the 6th one. That is the AMG HRT, the Haupt racing team. Hubert Haupt, who obviously himself is a well-known Mercedes racer, triumphed at the Dubai 24 Hours many times. Lovely bloke, actually. Well, Chad.
The H in HRT stands for Haupt, because it's the Haupt racing team. Is that what you just said? Sorry,
yes.
Beg your pardon.
It's all right. I don't mind. Yeah.
I was busy. I'm busy typing.
I know. It's this multitasking. We should never have men on comment. We should do one thing at a time. We could look at the computer, we could read the computer, we could type, we can't do anything and listen at the same time.
I'll freely admit that, yeah, completely.
And then it's the 2nd of the Porsche 911 GT3, which is the KCMG car number 19, that's Alex Impetori. Then it is another one, which is the Fricadelli Racing Team Porsche. This is 10th overall. All these cars on the lead lap, so he's just 10 car lengths behind, and it's is it Maxime Martel in the 31?
Yes.
Then it's Yoma Berman in the Mercedes, another one of the Haupt Racing Team cars, that's the number 2 car. Yoma Berman running in 11th, in 12th, 10th, there, I started getting teeth in. Tom Blomqvist is in the 2nd Rover Racing BMW M6 in 12th. In 13th is the 3rd BMW M6, and I have no idea what Mr. Krognis' first name is.
That is a Christian.
A Christian Krognis,
yeah,
from Volkenhurst Motorsport. And then we have in 14th, we have a Porsche. In 15th, we have the 3rd Mercedes, Danny Juncadella, with 10Q Racing Team Power, and Klaus Bachler in the Falcon Motorsports 44 Porsche 911, which actually looked pretty quick, but there wasn't having any luck whatsoever with traffic, and that is running in 16th. First car not on the lead lap, and first car not in SP9 is the SPX of Scuderia Cameron Glickenhaus, the SCG Scuderia Cameron Glickenhaus car, the 704 car with Thomas Mutsch on board. And then we have another selection of SP9s, a lap, but down with Mara. Only 2 cars on the 38th lap, and that's Mara Holtz and Huber Motorsport. So
Huber Motorsport, but they're the Pro-Am leaders.
And on a lap on their own.
Indeed. And they are sort of concerned about cars behind, because the Car Collection number 7 is 2nd in its class, but yeah, to be starting the race with a lap in as an advantage,
that's like having 5 laps.
It's huge around here, isn't it? Yeah, it's not just like a standard lap, as we must keep reminding ourselves. And the car, which is the meat in the sandwich between the 2 Pro-Am leaders, is the rejoining number 9 Mercedes from Get Speed Performance, with Maxi Book installed for this next stint. So Yeah, there's an awful lot still here to keep our eyes on, and brilliant that, well, not brilliant that we've been under a red flag, but cracking to say that there are 16 cars now on the lead lap, and they're all going to be very close to one another indeed on this newly issued grid, with effectively all of the SP9 cars bunched together. So there's been, to a certain degree, a wave by to even the field. We haven't got any back markers in amongst all the SP9s. It's going to be a straight fight from the restart here onto the Grand Prix track.
Just picking out one other car that is still running, but running a long way down, which is the car 26. There's a Jonathan Hershey Octane 126 Ferrari. Started in second, led the first, 6 corners, but it's now 3 laps back.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure whether that actually, that 3 laps back, which is what, 29 minutes, it must have had some issues in the pit, surely, but that car was never quick, apart from off the line. By the time it got on the Nordschleife for the first time, it was a rolling roadblock, and had lost 25 seconds from the lead at the end of the first lap. So, I'd love to know what the story of their race is, why it's got. I mean, the other thing about it, of course, it's not a full pro lineup, is it?
No, that's true.
So perhaps they have lost a bit of time by having the less starred drivers in the car. There's 4. If we go positions 26, 27, 28, 29, you have 4 class leaders in a row. You have the SP8T leader, the Volkenhaus Motorsport BMW M4 in 26. In 27 is the TCR leader, the no-name Honda Civic TCR, and the SP10 leader, which is the Hoffa Race Motorsport BMW M4 GT. So interesting, SP8T and SP10 are the same car, but they're in different classes. And then you have the Cayman 718 GT4 leading SP7, which is at least the class has multiple drivers in it. But yeah, so it's interesting that you got a little batch, they've all stuck together, and they're of course not fighting each other. And of course you look at it, you go, well, that's on 36, that's on 30, that's only a lap back, and you go, oh yeah, that's 15 miles, isn't it?
It is, and 15, nearly 16 miles.
We see in Prevented races sometimes where, you know, in that first period, we don't want to lose the lead lap. But you think about it, for example, if you think about the 2 cars, when you talk back up here, there's a couple of cars who are, you know, the Pro-Am who are separated by a lap now.
Yep.
It's quite possible when the race was called last night, they might only been a minute and a half apart, but just the wrong side of the leader.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, because it will all be judged by the overall leader, and it's down to laps completed. Yeah, and we've had this situation before.
Yeah,
where
so you got lapped, even though you were, you know, and you're only a minute behind the guy who was in your. There's enough of a gap to get the leader in the red flag for that. Suddenly you're no longer a minute behind, you're 9 minutes behind.
And there's no corrective measure in the regulations to put that right.
There are 15 cars who gained out of this, and they're in position, well, at least, but they're in positions 2 to 16. They've all gained. They're all close to the leader by between 6 seconds and 7 minutes closer than they were when he stopped. So they're all sitting there rubbing their hands in glee. Obviously, like the world, there are winners and losers, and some people are feeling pretty, you know, bruised by the fact that their tactics to put, you know, their different driver on. All right, we'll take the pain of losing 2 minutes now to gain it back later. Oh, we've lost a lap. Yeah,
and you just can't get that back, because you're then into a red flag for several hours. Was it 9.5 hours we worked out? So mightily frustrating. And you've done nothing wrong. You're just all of a sudden in a much worse situation than you might have been. And it could be done on pit stop cycles as well. It might be that, you know, the car that you are fighting against was due a pit stop. You've already served yours, thinking you're in a good position and will re-inherit the lead back again. Never get the chance. So, I mean, that's, to a certain extent, the lottery nature of this race. And I do think one of the other big things is they've now, everyone's got 9.5 fewer hours to try and catch up. You know,
yeah.
That ability to drive through the field, a massive chunk of the race has gone with everybody waiting for the weather to improve. It's still not ideal, the weather. I think it has stopped raining on the Grand Prix track, and let's hope around most of the Nordschleife, as the leading group, start Group 1, are now at Klostertal, which is the long run up the hill towards the carousel and on towards Hohe Acht. So they're deep into the 5th sector, approaching sector 6 of this 9-sector lap.
Yeah, I mean, it's the winners and losers situation of endurance racing, isn't it? Whenever you have to control the field, be it by a slow zone, be it by a safety car, be it by, you know, a red flag, there will be winners and losers. You can't do that. You know when you used to go scale extra? Yeah. And there's something wrong, like the phone rang or mum said T, and stop! And you all just come off the throttle at the same time. You just stop. The cars be locked in position, wouldn't they? and then you go 3, 2, 1, go. So that's a totally fair stoppage because you've got going again, you know, at the same point where you stop. Not possible with motor racing.
No.
You can't. It's not like dodging. You can't just cut the power and they all come to a gentle halt. And you have to stop. It's unsafe to go on, and managing the safety aspects of the race and managing how you control the field. There will always be winners and losers. In all honesty, whilst we can highlight a couple of losers, the basic winners are us and the fans, because we've got a restart with 16 cars in the lead lap all going to go for it.
And that's the thing, you know, you're trying to make it fair for all, but it's got to be, for me, entertaining as well as a spectacle. And yeah, to have a restart which deliberately isn't single file. I mean, DTM in recent years have started with a 2x2 restart after a safety car as well. That's purely for the crowd factor, because it makes it more interesting. You bunch the grid up, you've got more incident potentially, and the drivers have got more to do in their role of things. You get to find out who's the best driver and various formats of motorsports, and we didn't quite expect 2 starts to this race, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point there, Johnny, because people are understanding the news. You know, even the story of F1 now. You know, what they've done recently now, after a red flag, you don't have a safety car start, you have a standing start. You restart in the way you started in the first place. We are restarting in the way we started in the first place, which is by 2x2, and you know, yes, it's designed to make the thing more exciting and get a bit of the adrenaline rolling again for the second start. I mean, we just start the car behind the safety car and troll around there, fair enough. I mean, it's great because they've been bunched up, but it's not the same as, we may well see Frank Stickler losing the lead. I mean, Ras might decide to throw him up the inside. Alexander Sim might fancy his chances in the M6. If it was just a procession down the first corner, they would do it in file format, because then they'd be in protection mode and think, oh, we've got 7.5 hours to make this up. Nowadays, it's going to turn their bracing brains on, so it's going to turn off their common sense completely, and they'll be piling into a very down first corner. Now, don't forget, both sets of cars got it right the first time. We had one spin with no damage in the, so they both managed to get round that first corner wet with the adrenaline pumping with no issues. Now, what's the chances of we going 4 for 4 with the start over 2?
I don't want to put the kibosh on it really, but I really hope that in the tricky conditions that are sort of akin to what we had at 3:30 yesterday, everyone looks out for one another. I can't see that Chris Haas or Rene Rast will do anything stupid, because they're on for an Audi 1-2-3 right now. But yeah, Alexander Sims, fancy him for a sneaky move up the inside into the Haug hook on the first time of asking. And you've got Dennis Olsen there, the Norwegian driver in the number 18 KCMG Porsche, who doesn't need any more than a single invitation to try a move maybe around the outside. He's been doing a lot of overtaking in the KCMG Porsche on unconventional lines so far, and on the slightly banked corners, of which we have many around the Nordschleife. That's generally the better way to do it. Go where the water isn't and use that high line, just like Mauro Engel did on the opening lap to get ahead of the Octane 126 Ferrari around the outside of Hoog Eichen. So Ice Curver, Flansgard next for the line of cars which are nose to tail right now, but they will bunch up much closer to be 2 abreast in a second. I noticed that both Ferraris, the Haller Padgett Racing 1 example, number 16, and the 26 car, the Octane 126 entry, were circulating nose to tail there, and they're further apart than that on the grid, I thought. Yeah, 26 I'm expecting to be starting from the 12th row, and the 16 car the row in front, so pretty close to one another, the 488 Evos, one from 2018, one from 2020. They're very slightly different balance of performance being given by the officials, depending on which vintage of 488 you've turned up with.
Very quickly, before we get down to these restart, cars which have not rejoined include the 29, gets good performance, Mercedes AMG, that's not come back out again. The Conrad Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan, the 27. The Renault Clio, the number 4, has not come out again. Manuel Metzler in the 4 Mercedes AMG, that has stayed in the pits or in Parc Fermé. Sadly for us, because they're our friends, CP Racing have not come out with the Porsche 911 Cup Gen 2 car. Rent to drive Familia Racing with their Porsche 911 GT3 Cup from SP7, car number 64, hasn't come out again. We've also not seen the 63 car, the Porsche 911 Cup car, which was 55th place over with 33 laps, so that's not come out for some reason in SP7. And of course, the 15 car, the Audi R8 LMS, which appears to have had a row with racing powered by HF. So just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars have not rejoined. With the mystery about what's happening with the 15, but they haven't rejoined. And the 63 also, who seem to be doing all right in the Cup 1 car, they also have not rejoined.
Well, there's some confusion about at least one of those cars you just mentioned, because the live event ticker says 90 cars lined up for the restart. Maybe one didn't get away and has been wheeled into the pit lane. But considering we started with 97 yesterday afternoon, still to have 90 in the race is impressive, but a significant chunk of 9.5 hours where we have not been racing after the red flags were issued because of visibility and heavy rain concerns.
Okay, weird thing here. The 63 is not showing as being running on our timing screen. It is showing as being running on the GPS.
Right.
So that would mean you were correct.
It's not me, it's the live race ticker, which is normally heavily reliable.
There's a mismatch in the timing, and so that car is showing on the GPS as running. So that would be that car was weird how it wasn't running for the middle of the field. So perhaps they've got a ticker issue, or perhaps they've got a they just didn't ping the timing bar themselves whilst they are on the GPS tracker.
And a reminder that one of the first things that the 29 Lancia Audi is going to have to do when it makes its stop is sit in the penalty box for 32 seconds, because there's been a penalty hanging over car 29, second on the road, remember, after it was fined for disregarding flag signal. Rings will be loving this, but hoping that they can survive at least the first lap and then plough on for another 7 hours till 3:30 this afternoon. R8, and then the Alexander Sims-driven BMW M6. Sheldon van der Linde makes it 2 Beamers in the top 5, but he's being pursued by Maro Engel in the black and white Mercedes, car number 6. Then there's a bit of a gap after Kim Louis Schramm back to Alexander Imperatori, who doesn't quite have the speed in the number 19 Porsche compared to his teammate Olsen. So the queue behind him is Maxime Martin for Fricadelli, the Porsche running in 10th ahead of Jelmer Berman, Tom Blomqvist, Christian Krognes and Daniel Juncadella. Reminded of that queue forming up behind the Octane 126 Ferrari at the very first start of the race, you might remember. For whatever reason, that Ferrari didn't have the speed, and Imperatori hasn't either for KCMG.
I mean, that is almost certainly that tyre choice, isn't it, really? You suddenly find you're off pace with everybody else for no determined reason. You just have to think that the only reason for that is the drivers know how to drive. The cars, we know much, having done several hours already. It's obviously a tyre choice or just a tyre heat issue to get rolling. It's a case where it may well come to him. As we said before, this is going to be a rapidly drying session over the first 4 or 5 laps around the track. And it's whether you think you can get the full works to last the entire 8-lap run or 7-lap run to the safety car lap, or whether you think you're going to do something slightly different. And the groups that start Grupper 2, sorry, that's 4 different languages there. It's starting Group 2, John.
Yes, and this is also a single file restart, just as start Group 8 was. And that looks to be the Honda Civic from the TCR category that leads them away down towards the first corner, but one of the Black Falcon Team Identica Caymans is going to snatch the lead. KTM Crossbow from Teichmann Racing squeezing into second place, which will put the Honda Civic TCR down to third. Briefly, the Velocitas in the fight as well, and there's a spin for one of the BMW 240i Racing Cup cars. I think that's one of the top 3. That the 240 gold and white car, which was running second and has already lost a little bit of ground. Now, certainly in 240i, we had 2 cars, I think, on the lead lap. So that may well have affected positions within that division as well. We'll try and work that out as they head down the hill towards the hairpin bottom.
They're a lap ahead of the next car.
Are they? Yeah. A clear lap ahead.
Yeah, so they certainly did lose several positions in the queue, but no positions in the race.
And as I said, second in the division, of course, that's led by 239.
Nudged round. One of the KTMG cars just nudged round by Mathieu Jaminet. So that...
Well, that has to be Imperatori. No, Maxime Martin's in the 31, and Imperatori was the one holding Maxime Martin up. So has there been some contact? The 9th position there.
It said Jaminet, but he's not in the... There must have been a miscue on the screen. But yeah, we've just seen the replay of the car going round. It was a 240, brilliant spot, Johnny, absolutely. Actually, didn't go round, he went wide.
Well, that's the second incident.
Oh, he's done twice.
Yeah, he spun in the first corner and now off in the gravel later on in the Grand Prix lap. So, maybe he's picked something up, I'm not sure.
We've seen a KCMG Porsche go round, and we're still trying to work out who it is or why.
Well, it's got to be a Paratori, because if there was a red-white Porsche involved as well, the highest placed Fricadelli car is 10th, and it had in front of him a KCMG Porsche, so that fits in. Maxi Mook is challenging hard now on one of the Falcon Motorsport Porsches. That's the 33 car that was started by Marco Werner. Dirk Werner rather, the 33, yeah, Dirk Werner in 33 in class, Backler 44. They've switched positions because Backler started in 16th place.
It was Alex Inventory, he's dropping down the field now. He's dropped down to 16th, which is as far as he can go down, because that's all the people who are on the lead lap. And I think he's not actually up to speed again yet, so early drama there, as it seemed to be from the shot we got very quickly. Great to review that at some time in the future, but it looked like he was turning around.
So Maxi Mook getting a good run on Dirk Werner, and Werner with no answer to Mook's pace in the rejoining number 9 Get Speed Performance Mercedes. The run up the hill towards the carousel. There was a big chunk of turf on the ground there, almost indicating we've had an incident a bit further up as well. So the run out of Bergwerk, much better for the Mercedes, getting good drive to that crucial corner that determines your top speed through Kesselchen and Klostertal, and then that awkward right-hander when you turn into the carousel, which is exactly where the race leaders are now. Christopher Haase chasing René Rast in the green and white Land Motorsport Audi, and the race leader is Frank Stimpler for Phoenix Racing. And as expected, when you get out onto the actual depths of the Nordschleife, it's misty, it's wet, but it's interesting, isn't it? You've got a kind of a completely different level of visibility right there. Reaching the top of the circuit and Hoa Act, and those cars then working their way on towards Wipperman. The horrible curve. Do you hit that or not in these conditions? No, don't. Stay clear of it. And the Audis then first, second and third, with the chasing Alexander Sims in 4th position. Sheldon van der Linde in the number 42 Schnitzer BMW running down in 5th place. But the number 2 Mercedes, Vjelma Berman, continues to chase Maxime Martin in the red and white Porsche, with BMW number 98 of Tom Blomqvist running round in 12th position. So I was going to say a clean start for everybody, but of course the only slight problem is that they've already managed to severely limit Alexander Petroi's progress. He actually lost something in the region of 30 seconds with that. With shuffling going on, but once you stick these cars back together again, some are really going for it in these treacherous conditions. They feel their way around the upper levels of the Nordschleife. They're just coming now down the hill, about to hit the Swallow's Tail, the leader, and they've got the bit of a rest as they go down through Bergwerk and onto the main straight. They had 2 kilometres and just sit around going, that's nice, have a little bit of a rest, no problem at all. But yeah, I mean, it's been a very, very good start by the 3 Audis. They've got away, and they are effectively, I think, almost certainly running in as a team. They're not trying to, pressurise each other. They're not trying to have a little view. It's probably like a non-combative agreement. Like, let's just go around for the next 2 or 3 laps. Let's settle it down. Let's see what we can do. They've broken away by about 2.5 seconds from 4th place Alexander Sims in the Rover Racing car. The top 3 of them are covered by less than a second and a half. In fact, looking at as we go down the straight now, it's actually there's just hanging on the 2 BMWs. The first, they come down. Obviously, what will happen is that all the cars are being condensed down. They're all getting a drag off each other, and the aerodynamics and the slipstream. So they get closer and closer and closer. But the 3 Audis
huge. That's a publicity shot right there, isn't it, really?
Well,
that's the advert for Monday.
It's ideal, but the problem is there's 7 hours still to go.
Press goes early.
I like the fact that I can tell it's an Audi because of just the blinding headlights. The BMW's got nothing like that power from the nose to illuminate the ground in front. And the two BMWs in that fight, Alexander Sims and the Sheldon van der Linde car, sort of disappearing briefly down the Dottinger Hill. They pop back into sight now as they head over the line then and onto another lap. And Rene Rast might be going for the lead here. He's got a really good run on Frank Stippler, going for the outside line initially into the Yokohama S and swooping across the nose to take the race lead. Away from Frank Stippler is Rene Rast, although Stippler doesn't like that too much. Remember, yes, they're all Audi Sport team cars, but it's Phoenix Racing up against Land Motorsport. Careful not to make any contact here, boys. We have had a lead change, and Rene Rast now out front, but Stippler's going to stick with him in second. Third position for Christopher Haase. Meanwhile, there's been a drama further back, I think, in the second start group, because there are yellow flags being shown, and that is at Brunchen, with already a code 120 in place. The 100 car looks to have had a drama, which is the BMW. From Valkenhorst Motorsport, I think I'm right in saying. So car 100, isn't that the one that had the front end completely destroyed? So maybe that car's back in the race as well, that crashed earlier in the race. No, it was definitely 100. Okay. It was the Valkenhorst M6. There is a 101, which is the pro car, and the 100, which had one of the Van Bolens at the wheel, and a very disgruntled Jürgen Muller, frustrated that his car couldn't be recovered and put back in the race. But that's the only car shown as stopped between Brunchen and Flansgott. Car 100 pretty much going off at the same place it did much earlier on in the race. Obviously doesn't like that corner too much.
So car 1 and 3 also having a bit of an argument as the obviously the rule was just the first lap will be nice to each other, and after that we're going to scrap like heck. It's a bit up, and it is.
It's the same car
at the same place.
Just after Brunchen, actually. Nowhere near as much damage to the nose this time, but it's tagged the rear left corner up against the arm coat, facing the wrong way, and further drama for another car that has had the chance to rejoin because of a 9.5 hour red flag. Again, it's one of the Van Bolens. I'm not sure which of the two family members it is because my timing screen sadly doesn't differentiate between the two. But yeah, that's not the restart that Valkenhorst Motorsport wanted after significantly rebuilding the M6 from the Valkenhorst team. The 101 car, which is the pro-entered machine, the Pro-Am is the 100. 101, how's that doing? Christian Krocknes, 12th position, and Christian trying to reel in Tom Blomqvist in an all-BMW battle. Meanwhile, here in the background, the 4.4-litre turbocharged V8 in the nose of the Sheldon van der Linde team Schnitzer BMW. And about 4 or 5 car lengths up ahead is a certain Mauro Engel, but the speed limit getting slower and slower now on the exit of Brunchen, and then as you head towards Eiskurve and Flansgott. 2 marshal posts limiting track speed to 60 kilometers per hour. And there's a 120 going into that as well, as Mauro Engel thinks about a move up the inside of Alexander Sims, and Sims tries to hold him back at Arenberg, can't do it, looking for the switchback now, the outside-inside trick. Sims almost level with the rear wheels of Mauro Engel. They're heading downhill, a steep descent into the foxhole, and the BMW's right with the new 4th place car in the form of Mauro Engel. So it's Mercedes, BMW with Sheldon van der Linde chasing these 2 cars. And what this is doing is actually just creating a little bit of a gap to the top 3 Audis. But Mauro Engel was only ever going to be shown a little bit of an inside line. That's all he needed in the braking area for Arenberg. They're headed underneath the bridge with the black and white Mercedes from Auto Arena having nabbed the place. Nick Damon stepping out, and I'm joined once again by Alex Brundle here on RS1, part of the radio show, a limited network of channels. Nick and tough there, but a great overtake from Mauro Engel.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, and a bit of a demonstration of what could have been for Mercedes there by Mauro Engel. Just looks mega in the wet conditions, doesn't it? That chassis up the inside of Alexander Sims. I don't know what they've fed these 3 Audi drivers this morning, but they've not fed them many team orders, have they? They're flat out on it. Christopher Haase looking pretty quick. Stippler looks to be the one who's struggling most at the moment, having slipped first past behind Rast and then behind Hassan at the start of this restart. And now only half a second. Well, you can see the gap. There it is between Hassan and Rast at the very front of the field. Martin Pass, ever professional and concise in his words to us, that Audi Mission Control are in, and I'll quote him directly, in contact with the three teams. But it doesn't matter necessarily what you tell the driver. There's always radio failures to contend with, or completely intentional radio failures.
Yeah.
And
didn't hear you. Sorry.
And sorry. What was that? At the front of the field, and all of those three customer teams, I'm sure, hungry for victory with their various Audi GT3 machines.
Takes me back about 7 days witnessing an inter-team battle for United Autosports, actually, at the head of the order in LMP2, where the 32 and the 22 were a little bit close for comfort as far as Richard Dean was concerned.
We had it completely under control.
It was what young man Paul Di Resta was doing behind, which was a slight concern, but he did eventually get past your teammate Will Owen.
Flash button was worn out at the end of his stint.
So I heard, yes. Now, the 100 BMW for Valkenhorst Motorsports is being wheeled into the right direction. This, sadly, the second incident for this car. The first one, more or less destroying the front end, but what the red flag has allowed is for that car to be repaired, and it's back in the race. On the Yokohama Advan tyres, I noticed, as both Valkenhorst BMWs are.
Someone's going to be tagging that 100 car on Google Earth down there, aren't they, if current form is to be listed.
It's been part there for a little while through the course of the last 2 days, but thankfully the recovery this time is a much simpler process. Up the hill towards Hoa Act, chasing Christopher Haase, now to second. So Stippler, who started as the race leader, has slipped back to third position now. And Rene Rast, for me, was carrying a bit more speed than Stippler anyway, and now can just stretch his legs a touch, but he's taking Christopher Haase with him, and it's nose to tail between the two Audis that lead. There's a gap of 3 seconds or so back to Stippler, who is, again, in 2 cars this weekend. He does a little bit in the 5, but principally I think his main focus is that #1 car in 3rd place.
Haase looks like he might even be a touch quicker than Rast, actually, at the front of the field. You could just carry a bit more speed through the first part of Wipperman there. Didn't need any of the curb. Rast having to get out of the throttle. Look at him close up again as they head through the second part of Brunchen. And you've got to wonder if he's going to be trying to grab that toe as they head back down Dotti next time through the ice curve, which is ice by name and ice by nature, certainly in these conditions. And then off down through the Flansgarten section, over the big jump. Even getting air in these conditions, the GT3 cars, these Michelin wets are just absolutely mega and deliver so much grip in these conditions. Less standing water now, so much more sensible than we were through the middle of the night when tread blocks were filling and cars were just sailing off the road. Sensible decision to red flag the event in those conditions. Really, nobody could keep anything on the racetrack, could they?
Credit to all the marshals down at Brunchen and just afterwards for clearing that BMW so quickly, because I think the leaders got through without any delay there. The speed limit had been lifted. They were powering their way up towards Hoa Act as the BMW finally left the scene. The lap time at the end of this one will tell the true story, but as Frank Stippler just loses touch with the duo now of R8s out front, I think this could be a very decent lap, considering it's still raining in places. Certainly a lot of spray being thrown to the face of Sheldon van der Linde, so the windscreen wiper working overtime. And a great run from Christopher Haase now on Rene Rast. So we'll see whether Haase is carrying a bit more speed. A huge chunk of tyre pickup, I think, thrown into the air there. And they're well over to the right-hand side. Now Haase makes his move from right to left and glued to the white line on the left side as well. You can probably get 3 cars between them, so distant they are. But Haase does get the better of the runs. It gives him the inside line at Antonius Bucher. And there is another lead change. We barely had a lap completed. Look at
the confidence he has on the brakes down into that final chicane. Rene Rast just not quite having it in the 29 Audi, and Haase taking the lead of the event, swooping through. He got it done, hadn't he, down the Dottinger And under the Bilstein Bridge then was just a bit of a formality, as we see the 100 BMW visiting the pit lane after his little spin. It's a British section marshals actually from Hoak through most of Brunchen doing that work.
Cool.
Came to say hi last year. I was in Aston. Hello guys. Hope you're having a good event.
Certainly a large contingent of British Marshals go to Le Mans every year as well, and yeah, a number that I've spoken to through the years love the Nürburgring 24/2.
Well, they tend to keep it in country groups because rather than being in connection with race control here, the marshal posts are in connection with each other by phone, and so obviously language barrier, big fight then in the middle of the pack. This is the 42.
Yeah, of Schnitzer. So that's Sheldon van der Linde, who's just got ahead of Alex Sims there. So the M6s were door handle to door handle. Also in the queue is the KCMG Porsche of Dennis Olsen. So he's timed us in 7th place, and they're all now arcing their way through the Dunlop hairpin at the lowest point of the Grand Prix circuit. Great speed from Dennis Olsen off the corner. Sims not happy in that yellow and white BMW for Rover, because he had to expect the pace, I would have said, on the opening lap, but it's left him on the 3rd lap now since the restart, and he's been hunted by the KCMG Porsche, who thinks about a move up the inside through that. Oh, but so the 42 of Sheldon van der Linde goes off the road, as does Sims. So that's Olsen back in one place. He wasn't quite close enough to get the 2 Beamers in one move.
May well be, though, down into that fast chicane towards the end of the lap. They certainly won't be flat through the kink on the Grand Prix loop here. A bit of traffic involved as well. And let's see if Olsen then can get the move done on the BMW down into the chicane. Yes, he can. Lovely move. Brave move from Olsen.
Loads of curve through the second bit of the Vidal chicane, but he kept it just about on the straight and narrow, and now he can motor on to try and haul in Maro Engel. That's a completely different level of a task, but yeah, these BMWs with their large footprints, a big car, remember, almost like a touring car, and Christopher Haase, cracking run on René Rast, the slipstream effect we've seen so many times down the Dottinger Hoor, and he was glued to the right-hand side of the track initially, then shot to the left, and that gave him the inside line underneath the Bilstein Bridge to take the race lead. So we've had Stippler lead in the very early stages, René Rast take the lead at the end of the first lap, and now that's gone to Christopher Haase. 3:29.1, the new order for the 3 Audis.
BMW's not as happy in the wet conditions, are they? As we follow Sheldon van der Linde as he gets overtaken by Olsen, getting a bit of space on the inside. Still a fair few hours to go in this one, but the action's starting to hot up here, and you need to be towards the front. Towards the front is Christopher Haase. Rast has managed to sort of peg in to about a second back, so he's obviously not hemorrhaging time, René Rast, in quite the way that Frank Stippler is behind.
Just trying to work out who has taken an advantage as far as the fuel stints are concerned as well, because everyone's filled up with fuel, and when we had the red flag, the car's able to go slightly deeper into the stints, was the number 1 car, so that's put the one back on a level playing field with the new leader, number 3, Christopher Haase, and the 29 of René Rast. You're effectively pressing the restart button, reset button during the red flag, as now the Valkenhorst car 101 of Christian Krognes hustling Tom Blomqvist in the other Rover Racing BMW. This is a battle for 11th and 12th places, so not the Sims car, it's the sister machine at Rover, trying to keep the elbows out and keep Christian Krognes behind. They're hammering their way downhill through the foxhole. Cars bottom out, and then a slight incline, and the trees clear at Adenauer Forst. Great spectating area ordinarily, but sadly no fans permitted onto the Nordschleife this weekend because of the COVID-19 fears. But number 98, similar setup for me as the 99, doesn't have the pace, whereas the Christian Krognes BMW looking much stronger.
Both Rover cars struggling in these conditions, aren't they, in the morning? Interesting battles further back. The Hagen having a 1-lap lead in the SP8T class, but the really interesting one for me is in SP7, Spengler in the 65, just a few seconds ahead of Bremer in the 58 car. It's a nice battle raging in SP7 for the Porsche 911 Cup cars. Nice battle as well in SP10 with Trey in the 70 literally 25 seconds up the road from Van der Ende in the 75 car. So still going off in the GT3 categories. Those who are interested in the progress of the Glickenhaus, sitting currently in 18th place with Butch at the wheel, of course, leading their SPA-X class, in which they're the only entrant. They are a lap back on the leaders and were after the restart, as Christopher Haas moves at the front.
Yeah, Thomas Much and, well, Jim Glickenhaus definitely, Jim who runs the team, hoping, well, at this stage, probably for a top 10 finish, but he'd need a few cars to fall away. We've had plenty do that already in we have 6 3/4 hours of racing before the red flag. Powering up the hill, René Rast, but away and gone is Christopher Haas, staring at nearly a 3-second advantage now for the number 3 car collection Audi. Lands Motorsport doing the chasing, Phoenix Racing with the number 1 on the door after their victory in 2019 with Frank Schnipper at the wheel. Even more distance, it's 10 seconds the gap now between Christopher Haas and Schnipper in third, and he in turn is being caught by Mauro Engel, who's only 2 seconds away in the number 6 Auto Arena Mercedes. So you could have a real battle on the third and fourth in a moment or two between Audi and Mercedes.
Mauro Engel is really moving, isn't he, behind this little Audi battle, and as you say, is well in the position in that Merc to be catching up with them. They've been super strong all the way through qualifying and through the early phases of the race before basically various different misfortunes hit all of them. Of course, we've seen some of those cars being repaired and put back into the race. Maxi Bunk in the number 9 car, we saw Marcello sideways, then backwards, then in the wall earlier on in the race, sitting in 19th position now, some 2 laps back from this leading battle, but carrying good speed. Another giant killer overall, the 170 TCR car, Honda Civic, is sitting up in 27th place at the moment with Marcus Osterreich at the wheel of that. That's a pretty good effort overall, isn't it, for
Very
that
good.
TCR machine? And good to see them making the most of some front-wheel drive action. Must be torque steering like an angry camel, mustn't it?
Yeah, TCR sadly not got quite the numbers this year, but that Honda Civic TCR does lead the class. There's a couple of Hyundais in there and the Audi from Bock Motorsport. And they'll find a battle. They're having a cracking battle. It was really close when the red flag came out, first to second in that division. Now into the phase of finding traffic for the race leader Christopher Haas and René Rast in second. They deal with one of the Opel Astras pretty easily. And up ahead, the Ford Mustang GT, which is in the AT category as well. So race leader just approaching Schwab-und-Schwarz, the Kleiner carousel, and finds the narrowest of inside lines to sneak alongside a BMW 3 Series. Does the same on the approach to the concrete of the Kleiner carousel. Christopher Haas jumping from one side of the road to the other there. Not much grip, it would seem, on the concrete, although the heavy banking certainly sucks you into the apex of the corner, spits you out the other side and on towards Galgenkopf. René Rast up the inside there, plenty of blue flags being waved for the 3 Series BMW to René's left, but he was already by him.
Should point out in that number 90 Astra we've been interested in through the race, current driver at the moment, Carlos Tavares.
Excellent.
So I think with everything that's about to be happening in Hypercar and Top Le Mans series regulation, I may be commentating on that car only for the rest of the event. But I hope he's enjoying himself and all the great good of motorsport. You know, the top brass of motorsport love this race. They absolutely do. Remember Andy Palmer, previously of Aston Martin, used to love coming here and racing his various bits of machinery, because it really is no preening, proper motorsport.
Yeah. And
we're all petrol heads at the end of the day.
Yeah, Carlos sharing with Herbie Schmidt in that car, JP Imparato and Francois Valles in the number 90. So we'll keep our eyes peeled as to how they get on. 3 cars GT3-wise down the Dottinger once again. A massive glare of headlights, particularly from the Audis, but focusing on the scrap involving 2 BMWs. So Van der Linde is in there, Sims 2, and the Mercedes number 22, not very far away, of Daniel Juncadella. So actually that's Krocknes, Blomqvist and Juncadella for 11th, 12th and 13th. Christian Krognes for Valkenhorst having got by Blomqvist. And now that rumbling V8 for the Mercedes, 6.2, normally aspirated Mercedes for DTM star Daniel Juncadella joining the party.
Good little scrap this. Juncadella making a good reputation for himself in these kind of cars, isn't he? Juncadella has spell in DTM and now plying his trade very successfully here. Big late move from the Rover car. Maybe they're coming into their own a little bit. We have seen cars struggling to put temperature in the various compounds of wet tyre, and certainly spotted Fred with a little help from our friends at the Collective from Michelin, just slicing through tread blocks, trying to get some movement out of the tread block and build some temperature. It's devilishly cold this weekend and wet and yucky and horrible. I know the Formula One glitterati are packing their coats as we speak for the F1 event, having watched this one. Karim Chandok tuning in and saying, "Oh goodness me, I'm gonna have to pack my pack for the Nürburgring later on in the year."
Yeah, well, this is possibly a sign of things to come in the autumnal weather. Hello, Karun. Hope you're enjoying the coverage. 239, the Eichenberg BMW M240i, currently leading by 15 seconds. That's the M240i division. 7 cars starting Classic Cup 5, by the way. Used to that field being easily into the low 20s, but great that at least 7 cars can turn out, and I'm sure that they are virtually nose to tail in places. Already had the second place car in that division, the 240, with dramas on the same lap, 2 of them on the Grand Prix lap, in fact, when it had a spin at the start of the restart of the race this morning, and then lost it into the gravel later on in the same lap. Still huge pressure on the back bumper of Tom Blomqvist from Juncadella, man from Barcelona. Very different approach to that run off the Grand Prix circuit, over the road bridge and onto the Hats and back. And a little look up the inside again for the Mercedes. The BMW is wide through the second of those left-handers, but there's no way through. The track gets very narrow here.
That's not a difference in choice of line from Blomqvist. That's Blomqvist squaring off the corner to try and make the car work, because he's just not got the grip on the apex. So he's braking nice and straight, turning the car late, trying to get the car as straight as possible under traction, whereas Juncadella, with all that downforce from the Mercedes, can just hoover and carry speed through the mid-corner as they head into the traffic through the Hats and back. Blomqvist is under pressure to hold on to this one. You can just see how poised the Merc is in the changes of direction, and he's going to be under pressure again as they head down to the floodplats for this time around.
Managed to get by and safely, I might add, Olivier Mutchens in his Toyota GT86 Cup car. Mutchens on the curb, trying to stay as best he could out of the way as the 2 GT3s flooded by. I think that's the other Astra in the field, the OPC one, and the Cup car make it really eclectic entry, as it traditionally is here at the Nürburgring 24 hours. We had 97 cars start the race at 3:30 yesterday. 90 cars make the restart as well, after so much work was done overnight inside the red flag period. It's great to have at least one of the 2 Mercedes that crashed out spectacularly last night into the race. So number 9 has been brought back after that pretty big crash for Raffaele Marciello. Maxi Boot put in the number 9 car for Get Speed for the restart, but number 4 is definitely out after huge damage for Manuel Metzger.
That crash was confusing me for Marciello, so I've been in touch with Steve Bushman, who runs Get Speed overnight. Confirmed to me that, well, in his words, as many others did, Raffaele just had a spin into Adenauer Forest, and then somewhere within that spin process, the damage happened, which necessitated the second incident, which was down at Callanhard.
Yes.
And it was the damage actually from the second incident that meant he needed to be towed back to the pit. So basically, we're so used to Raffaele just being such a legend in these cars. We gave him basically the benefit of the doubt, but then a couple of laps later we saw Dries van Thor, another absolutely top GT driver, have a similar spin. It just looked slippery down there, and we were surmising that perhaps it could have been some sort of issue with the left rear suspension or tyre as it was on an outlap from at least from my communications with the team, it seems not so, but there was some damage at some point during that spin, which then caused the second contact, which was the problem.
Yeah.
So, and clarification, thanks, Steve, for that.
Yeah, great stuff to get some concrete information regarding that incident. So often, though, a race can sort of spiral out of control because of an innocuous accident or incident that leads to something else. And that was a big hit on the front left corner where we just went skating off because of the damage that incurred at ADAC. Forced, and the number 9 car can catch a glimpse